Oh hi there humans, it's Dawn. So I recently had the chance to play an exclusive preview of the new expansion for Elder Scrolls Online, Elsweyr. Me and some other content creators were invited to London to get our hands on Elsweyr for the very first time. They'd themed the entire venue for the event, and it felt just like walking into a Khajiit house. It was amazing. They were even serving dishes from the recently released Elder Scrolls cookbook. There were a variety of meaty delights, as well as the famous sweet rolls. Alas, I was too late to get my hands on a sweet roll. Filthy humans stole them before I had a chance. Although I did enjoy some hot spiced mead. There was a talk from the devs where they told us about their vision for Elsweyr. They also talked about what we could expect throughout the season of the Dragon, the year's worth of content they have planned for Elder Scrolls Online. The talk also included a free heart attack when they unexpectedly played the sound effect for the dragons in Elsweyr. I may have died. It was very loud. And then it was time to play the demo, inside of a giant tent. So here's a roundup of what we experienced in the demo and what you can look forward to in the new expansion. We started off by playing the new tutorial for Elsweyr. In the classic Elder Scrolls style, our character awakens after being injured in a dragon attack in the northern region of Elsweyr, also known as Iniquina. Abnar Tharn has gone and royally fucked up. Again. If you played the Elsweyr prologue, you'll know that Abnar was tricked into chasing down an old Khajiit legend of a powerful weapon in the hopes that he could use it as a tool to stop the war in Tamriel. Despite Chimera's best efforts, Abnar ends up unknowingly releasing dragons into the world. But as if the dragon problem wasn't enough, the Khajiits also have another problem on their paws. The Euraxians. At the time period that ESO takes place, Abnar Tharn's half-sister Euraxia conquered Rimmon and the northern parts of Elsweyr about 6 years ago. Her followers, the Euraxians, threaten the border of the land still controlled by the Khajiit. And what's more, in the demo, it seems that the dragons have made some form of alliance with them. During our playthrough, the Khajiit that we were with noticed that the dragons aren't attacking the Euraxians. Either Euraxia has found some way to force the dragons to fight for her, by magical means or otherwise, or she has something to offer them, and they're working together. The Khajiiti Defense Force are under the pressure of fighting both at once. And it's doubly bad timing, because at the point where the dragons arrived, they were fighting to liberate Rimmon from Euraxia's control. You'll find that the main questline revolves around aiding the Khajiit by both keeping the dragons at bay and finding a way to finally bring the Euraxians down. We are, of course, all excited to finally hear more about the long-awaited Necromancer. There is so much to tell you about the Necromancer and so many skills and abilities. I really wanted to go through everything in a separate video. So if you're keen to dive deeper into the Necromancer, go and check out my other video here. In general though, the Necro feels different from anything else in the game already. And it's certainly not just another version of the sorcerer. The practice of necromancy is a forbidden art, outlawed by most of civilized society in Tamriel. And while you're playing as one, even using one of your abilities while in the company of law-abiding NPCs is considered a criminal act. However, with the enemies of the Khajiit using necromancy and hordes of undead fighting against them, they've perhaps been forced to accept some of the ways of necromancy, which explains why you as a player can still play the role of the hero, even whilst resurrecting bodies and siphoning the souls of the dead. Overall, the Necro is really fun to play, and as with most classes in ESO, it's very versatile, able to damage, tank and heal, due to a variety of abilities made available in their skill lines. Although nothing quite beats seeing a huge colossus rise from the ground and pulverize your enemies between its bare hands. Aside from the new player class, Elsweyr as always has a wide cast of NPCs who make the world feel alive. The devs confirmed that some familiar faces and fan favourites are returning for the Season of the Dragon. Our favourite kitty returns, Razum Dar, the Khajiiti super spy, and James Bond of ESO. I didn't manage to track Raz down during the demo, so he probably appears later on, but it was confirmed by the devs that he will be making an appearance, probably keeping an eye on the situation for Queen Irene. If dragons have returned to the world, it's a concern for all of Tamriel, and not just the Khajiit. Raz always keeps an eye out. Of course, Abnar Tharn returns, heading up his quest to fix his mistake. It was his fault that the dragons were released from the Restone Tablet. Chimera would certainly agree with me in blaming Abnar. The feisty aide to the Speaker of the Main is already a well-loved character. We first saw her in the cinematic trailer for Elsweyr, and even though we'd only seen her there for a few seconds, she's already becoming a fan favourite. I got to meet with her in-game, where she was talking with the Speaker of the Main, trying to make a plan to deal with the dragons, and mostly cursing Abnar. A lot. Of course, she fully blames Abner for the release of the dragons, and I think her brushing up against Abner's stubborn disposition is going to make for some really interesting character moments throughout the Elsweyr storyline. And last but not least, Sir Cadwell, our favourite pot-headed man, returns. And yes, it was confirmed by the devs at the event that he will again be voiced by John Cleese. It's been a while since the voice actors of Abner and Cadwell have done work for the game, and it's great to see such a star-studded cast returning. Abner notices that there are some strange surges of arcane energy occurring nearby and sends you to investigate. We find out that the cause is a very familiar face, and in typical kooky Cadwell fashion, he says he accidentally teleported to Elsweyr from a dream. In his dream, he saw an ancient gravestone, which happened to be a portal in the real world, and took him to the grave of the betrayer mentioned in the legends of Kunzari. Cadwell agrees to help us to find a way to stop the dragons, but only if we help him figure out what his dream means first. And now for the part that everybody is talking about. The dragons are indeed back in Tamriel. Going into playing, I thought that the dragons would be a rare find in Elsweyr, perhaps as boss encounters and raids only, but the dragons are on full-scale attack in Elsweyr. If you look into the sky, you'll probably see dragons flying, or swooping down to cause havoc in the world below. In the demo, we learnt the name of one of the dragons, Balok Dan, who seemed to be in league with the Uraxian forces. During a fight with him, he's called away by Calgronteed, complicated names, am I right, who tells him to return to his side. The question is whether the dragons are doing this willfully, as some sort of alliance, or if they're under Uraxia's control. Many of the quests revolve around giving aid to outposts and villages that have been destroyed by dragons, and helping find ways to keep them at bay. There are also dragon attacks, random dragon encounters similar to the dolmen or geysers in Somerset. Dragons will swoop down, and players must work together to repel them and send them back into the skies. As far as actually defeating the dragons goes though, that isn't likely to happen in the main world. Dragons are extremely powerful magical creatures, and it's going to take more than just one band of adventurers to take them down. Speaking of, however, if you're brave enough to venture into Sunspire, the new 12-man trial, you might find more than a few. The Temple of Akatosh has been overrun by dragons. The devs mentioned that uniquely, all of the bosses contained within the trial will also have their own hard modes. And of course, we can't talk about Elsweyr without talking about our favourite cat people, the Khajiit. Not much has been previously known about the Khajiiti lands or the culture of the Khajiit themselves, particularly in the time period that Elder Scrolls Online takes place. Long have Khajiits been a wandering and outcast race, but you'll be seeing them for the first time in their own homes. Often distrusted for their travelling lifestyles and prejudiced as being thieves and skooma dealers, we're actually seeing the homeland of the Khajiits. We know that the land of Elsweyr is roughly divided by two types of Khajiit. The civilized aristocracy, who often thrive on the exportation of salturish and moon sugar, and the nomadic, often more aggressive tribes. In the demo that we played, we were placed in northern Elsweyr, mostly barren grasslands, which are still tribal. It has been confirmed that we'll see different Khajiiti forms for the first time in the expansion, and whilst I was playing the demo, I met a couple. If you didn't know anything about different types of Khajiit, it's very complicated, but essentially, depending on the moon phase under which a Khajiit is born, they morph into different forms. So far, we've only seen the humanoid forms of Khajiit in Tamriel, but there are still many others. From human-like forms to four-legged felines, there are many different shades of Khajiit, including the Senche, huge tiger Khajiit with yellow eyes and tawny fur, and stripes the colour of blood. Other Khajiit even use them as mounts. And the Alfiq, similar to a house cat. I actually found an Alfiq whilst wandering through the deserts, and I was very surprised to see the Alfiq talking. Usually in the lore, Alfiq can't talk, but this one seemed to have found a way to. Also, extra Alfiq points for adorable outfit. If we see the forest and southern marsh areas in coming DLC content, we're likely to encounter the lightweight branch-dwelling Dagi, and perhaps even the mysterious Toje. This is a map of the region that we start off with, in the northern parts of Elsweyr. I've never been a fan of desert regions in games, but ZeniMax have created a thriving and very alive place filled with beautiful scenery and an array of very curious creatures. Although unfortunately, I found out that a lot of Elsweyr's wildlife isn't too friendly at all. Northern Elsweyr is a land of rocky grasslands and dry wastes. A huge amount of detail has gone into the styling of lavish Khajiiti buildings, which are of course inspired by Eastern culture. It's so nice to see more permanent Khajiit homes in the game. After seeing so many tents and caravans throughout the main world, you'll find ancient temples, bustling markets, and many a shady oasis. And if we see the southern parts of Elsweyr added later on, we may even experience jungles and river basins. I cannot wait to explore Elsweyr more, and I know there are so many stories waiting for us in this new mysterious land. What are you most looking forward to in the expansion? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and until next time, may your road lead you to warm sands.